Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the program. It is exactly 8:53 a.m. and we are now joined by Hafiz Ibrahim Musa. He is with the Palestine Information Network. This seems to have become his life's work. Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue keeping him on this path in good health to truly raise the voice or the voices of the voiceless Palestinian people. Assalamu alaikum to you, Ibrahim Musa. Welcome to the program. Nice talking with you after a very, very long time.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Actually, the pleasure is mutual. It's been a busy year, but alhamdulillah, we are back.
Okay, but a very, very worrying situation, is it not? I mean, I know that you were hard at work in producing your book, which we've never got down to having an interview about. So inshallah, it happens sometime this year. And I think it's important to discuss it, very especially with the type of things playing out at Al-Aqsa. For example, we understand that just alone in this past year, the year 2022, the Al-Aqsa Mosque has been stormed by 48,000 Israeli occupiers. But I should imagine this wasn't in one go. This was over a period of time. And lots of very really violations have been undertaken during all of those situations. How have you managed to keep track of all of these atrocities? I understand it has been documented. And how does the Palestine Information Network and other interested parties move forward with all of these violations?
Julia, the motto or the kind of mantra that we work with is always keep an eye on Masjid al-Aqsa. This is becoming obviously a centerpiece of what is occurring in the wider Palestinian situation and obviously what is occurring throughout the Middle East, shaping trends, and it's becoming an important part of the agenda of the new right-wing Israeli government, which I guess we would speak about. And therefore, the idea is there are seemingly mundane things that occur at Masjid al-Aqsa each and every day, day in and day out, and we dare not just take our eyes off what is happening at Masjid al-Aqsa. And when one looks at what happens at Masjid al-Aqsa through the lenses of activists who are on the ground on a daily basis and put out these reports, Jerusalemite media organizations, grassroots are doing excellent work. One will not be taken then by surprise by the kind of reports that are coming out now about Ben Gavir and what he is doing at Masjid al-Aqsa, because one sees a picture that is developing over a period of time, and what is occurring at Masjid al-Aqsa is not purely the result of what one man is doing at Masjid al-Aqsa today, but rather it is an accumulation of change policies over a period of time, not limited to the latest Israeli right-wing government.
Ibrahim, it is very, very concerning of what goes on there on a daily basis. And I'm wondering, the Palestinian people, the rightful people of the land and the rightful owners or the rightful residents of Masjid al-Aqsa and surrounds, are being harassed on a daily basis. We've heard about violations which included turning the masjid into a military barracks for Israeli army soldiers, having extremist Jewish groups performing Jewish prayers, prostrations, public Jewish rituals, chants, singing, and even dancing inside of the mosque's courtyard, and of course raising Israeli flags. how do the Palestinian people then respond? Do they just stand by silently and are onlookers? Because we know that they are in a very, very helpless and hopeless situation. They are against one of the mightiest armies probably in the world, as small as this army might be. The invaders, the army of the invaders. Um, what do they do? Are there international communities where they can go and raise their concerns to? I am also aware that the Jordanian Ministry of Endowments, which is responsible for managing the affairs of Al-Aqsa Mosque, have spoken out very loudly against all of these recent atrocities. Do you think that that might help at all?
So, Julie, what typically has been the response of the Palestinians on the street in Jerusalem is always there's been a call in, whenever there is an intensified threat that the term that's used is Shaddur Rihal, which has its origins in hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which says, do not embark on a journey for the purposes of seeking reward except the three mosques, Al-Aqsa being one of them. So that title being used, go out in your numbers just to be present in Masjid Al-Aqsa, to visit the masjid, and that presence is not sufficient, but it plays a great role in trying to thwart the Israeli plans to occupy the masjid, to divide the masjid. So that's one call that comes from the street. The other has been education. The other has been trying to prepare, if you'd like, a generation that is not, want to subjugation, and a proud, a confident generation that Palestinians believe might be able to bring victory to the Palestinian cause. Uh, when it comes to the OPAF and the endowments that you speak about, which is has historically been under the patronage of the Jordanians, there's a mixed review on what is going on there. Many Palestinians within the masjid, the employees of the masjid, the guards particularly, who are in the front line of trying to thwart the the onslaughts of the Israeli police and the Israeli settlers as they come in, feel that they have been betrayed or been abandoned by the Jordanians. Jordanians, due to political reasons, whilst paying salaries, haven't gone beyond that to be assertive enough to challenge the Israelis politically and defend their own employees. We have still no hope in the Jordanians. We have the Jordanian King Abdullah the other day saying that if red lines are crossed, we are prepared to defend this particular cause. So we'll have to watch that particular area. We have the latest incursions being now taken to the United Nations Security Council, coincidentally or ironically, perhaps a country like the United Arab Emirates becoming the voice of this particular cause at the United Nations, which again I say ironic because the UAE famously, along with Bahrain, Morocco, and others, have normalized ties with the state of Israel. One doesn't hold any breath to see what would come out of the UAE. But I say it is a positive development in that once again this gives the platform for these violations to be spoken about through the media at the highest levels in the coverage of what occurs at the United Nations. So that definitely would be positive.
I must say that I was quite encouraged when I read the article by King Abdullah saying that they're keeping an eye on those red lines not being crossed. And it seems like for the first time ever in the history of this conflict, of this occupation, that a Middle Eastern leader has come out quite strongly. Do you think that the Israeli occupiers, will take heed of what he's saying, or they're just going to dismiss what he said as not important enough, or would they call his bluff?
So
Because that
the
just
thing,
Ibrahim, just to come in here, because an action like that could start up a war in that region, could it not? I mean, that's pretty dangerous.
I think the Israeli state knows the situation of vulnerability of the king himself. So on the one hand, Israel has been very keen to uphold the peace with Jordan, and this is the normalization that Jordan has entered into entered into with the state of Israel since 1994, because just like the state of Israel, the state of Egypt are dependent on huge amounts of foreign aid, to the tune of billions from the United States of America. Similar is the case of Jordan, and the Jordanian monarchy is hanging on a thread and has dealt with protests before, and is in that sense very vulnerable to foreign pressure. So the West and the state of Israel want to upkeep the position of Jordan as a monarchy, as one of the states that border the current Palestine.
As a buffer.
On the one hand,
Ibrahim, are you there?
yes, sorry, I
Oh,
lost you.
and I lost. Yes, yes, I lost you for a minute there. Carry on.
So, the Jordanians, I think when we use the word bluster, I would think that's an accurate phrase to use in terms of what the Jordanian king is saying. And I would also say that yes, we acknowledge the Jordanian role in the Awqaf and so forth, but also one has to look at what the king said in other parts of the interview, where he said, and I quote here, he says that the integration of Israel into the region, which is extremely important, is not going to happen unless there is a future for the Palestinians. And if we cannot solve this problem, the street is naturally going to be sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. And there I detect that here you have one amongst many Middle Eastern dictators who are more concerned about their own position and what he legitimately describes as or is managed. His description or his audit of what could happen is correct, but his fears are more about his own throne and the stability of Jordan than perhaps gaining the freedom of Palestinians, immediately.
Sadly, isn't that what it's all about? Everyone taking care of their own backyard. Do you think, Ibrahim, at this stage in the history of Palestine, that, and a lot of the Palestinian leaders have been saying this, that they don't want, it's not a situation of expelling the Zionists or the Jews from the occupied territories. It's about seeing a two-state solution. Would that, in fact, be the answer?
If we were to look at polls, I don't have the exact data, but these have been reported on towards the latter half of 2022. The opinion polls of Palestinians, the number of Palestinians on the ground who support the idea of a two-state solution is definitely now in a minority. To the contrary, we find that whether it's a majority or whether it's an increasing number of Palestinians are much more fascinated with the idea of armed resistance. And I'm not, just putting this out from a sentimental sort of or romantic notion of armed resistance, but when we have new groups that emerged, for instance, the Lions Den, Arena al-Usud. This is a new Palestinian armed group that emerged in the West Bank that had been extremely successful in its armed attacks against Israeli soldiers and Israeli settlers. we found a total mobilization of Palestinians behind this group, a fascination behind the activities of this group. And when they called for general strikes, when they called for cities to be closed down, businesses to be closed down, they received a resounding response, which led many people to say that the popularity of particular Palestinian groups increases depending on their efficiency of armed resistance. This is one case in point. Another case in point was when Palestinians, the resistance from the Gaza Strip is effective in, its response to Israeli crimes through resistance. We see an increase in its popularity. To the contrary, when we have the Palestinian Authority, which is now beset by internal wranglings and questions over succession, because Mahmoud Abbas's departure is just a matter of time. The only thing that the Palestinian Authority is really serving is security coordination with the Israelis. We see the effect on its popularity, which is at an all-time low. So I think the idea of a two-state solution, well beyond its sell-by date, through these indicators of what Palestinians prefer, and Palestinians are moving towards a more grassroots leadership on the street in Jerusalem. The old divide of Hamas and Fatah, while people might still have their loyalties, also seems to have gone to the wayside because these two parties haven't really managed to, paper over the problems or the gulf between these two parties. And there's people would support either party at different times depending on how effective they are. And that's becoming now the benchmark, how effective you are in challenging the resistance tangibly. And this obviously shows from time to time, which I think then should translate into strategies for solidarity movements on the outside. It's a difficult discussion to have, but it's not helpful to be supportive of the Palestinians, but not reflective of what Palestinians are saying on the ground, which is how important a component, amongst other components, amongst political components, amongst boycott components, actual resistance, armed resistance is, which is legitimate, by the way, under international law against legitimate targets.
My final question then, it's a two-pronged question. If the two-state solution is not the answer any longer, what is the ideal answer or the ideal outcome as far as the Palestinian people are concerned? Question number one. Question number two, it seems almost as if the neighboring countries in the Middle East, the neighbors of Palestine, and of course Israel, are quite happy to have the occupiers there, because for some reason it seems to give the other dictatorships around in that vicinity some sense of protection. Would I be correct in voicing that sentiment? Ibrahim, are you there? Okay,
Yes, I'm here.
okay, did you hear my question?
Yes, I've got your two parts of the question.
Please, could you respond to that and then we'll wrap up, inshallah?
For sure. The second part of your question, I think this is a neglected part of the strategy, the solidarity strategy that we should concentrate on going forward. That there's a lot of focus on the actions of the Israeli state, but historically speaking, it is the fate of the nations around it and the ability of the nations around it to be able to support the Palestinian cause that is a determining factor in pushing through with eventual liberation. This is, one looks at the history of Palestine and various foreign occupations in the past, and very often, Palestinians might win victories in their struggle within the Palestinian territories, only to be betrayed from the outside. A key example of that is the changes that have happened in Egypt under the Sisi regime, and all the betrayal that has happened from the Gulf countries and so forth. So all the aggression that is happening in Egypt, that is happening in the Gulf countries, that is happening in Syria and so forth, should be challenged, because this is one of the first lines of defense of the Palestinian cause, and to be able to reap the gains being made by Palestinians and being made by the solidarity movement internationally. In terms of the first part of the question, two-state or one state, obviously we've got the reports from B'Tselem, we've got the reports from Human Rights Watch, we've got the reports from so many organizations over the past year that talk about an apartheid, one-state reality, the fact that Israel controls the West Bank and applies Israeli law in the West Bank means that we have to deal with this entire struggle as a one-state reality, and the point is not to delve deep into what the nature of that future state will look like, but rather work on, as the authors of those reports have pointed out, work on trying to remove those edifices of apartheid, and that requires a broad strategy. The first, as you've spoken about, deals with the neighboring Arab countries. Deals with, let's not forget about the refugees in those countries. Then not only limiting ourselves, as we've unfortunately done, to look at the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and imagine that's the end all of Palestinians. Let us also focus intensely on Jerusalem, with Masjid al-Aqsa as a mobilizing point, but not that only. Let's look at Palestinians who are, through the dictates of history, have found themselves citizens in the Israeli state and are being dealt with as two-state citizens, second-tier citizens. Those living in Haifa, those living in al-Farm, all of these, which the new Israeli government, some proponents, want to expel in what they call a second Nakba. So let's mold together all of these, looking at historical Palestine as a whole, as well as then looking beyond into the Islamic terminology of what is known as Bilad al-Sham, the neighboring countries that also play a very important role in the destiny of Palestine.
Ibrahim Musa, Hafiz Ibrahim Musa, really wonderful talking with you this morning. You've given us some deep insights into the situation playing out at Al-Aqsa and Palestine as a whole. Do look forward to chatting to you again sometime in the future. Allah accept all your efforts and your du'as, inshallah. Keep us in your du'as as well. Go well, and salamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
16 after 9, news and views on Salam Media. A very big welcome to our Polokwane listeners on One Nation FM. We do hope you are enjoying all of the interviews thus far. In a minute or two, we are going to be talking with Kun Stuep. He is the EU policy coordinator at the World Uyghur Congress. Also on the show, we'll be talking with founder of Alsis Radio, Imran Muqaddam, and we'll wrap up by talking with research fellow at AfriCID, Aisha Kaji. So do stay with us.